$10 million to be my wife for 9 months. David Sterling stood on a windswept corner of Wall Street, the city a roaring symphony around him. His eyes, sharp and impatient, scanned the hurried lunch crowd. He needed a solution, a clean one, and fast. Then he saw her. Sarah sat huddled against the cold brick of a building, a threadbare coat pulled tight. Her hair was a mess, but her eyes, shadowed and defiant, held a spark that cut through the city's indifference. David, a man who made decisions in milliseconds, crossed the street. He crouched before her, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the grime around them. "Miss," his voice was low, commanding, yet surprisingly gentle. "David Sterling, I have an offer." Sarah looked up, suspicion clouding her tired gaze. "Offers? People usually just throw spare change." Her voice was rough, laced with a weary cynicism. David's lips quirked slightly. "This isn't charity. This is work. Accept, and you get a roof, food, and a life-changing sum when it's done." Sarah's skepticism deepened. "Work? What kind of work?" David met her gaze directly. "I need a wife. For 9 months." The words hung in the air, improbable and absurd against the backdrop of Manhattan's relentless pulse. Sarah laughed, a short, disbelieving sound, but David's face remained granite serious. He outlined the proposition: a temporary marriage, a legal formality with clear boundaries, and a payment that would erase her current reality. Silence stretched between them, punctuated by the city's clamor. Sarah's eyes narrowed, calculating. Need battled with a flicker of pride. Finally, she spoke. "Okay, but everything in writing, every single detail." She wasn't going to be played, not again. David nodded, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "Agreed." He stood and gestured for her to follow. Instead of a lawyer's office, David took her to a discreet clinic tucked away in a brownstone in the Upper East Side. He offered no explanation, simply guided her inside. Sarah underwent a battery of tests, a whirlwind of blood draws and examinations. The doctor, a man with kind eyes and a knowing air, seemed to be an old acquaintance of David's. The procedures felt invasive and strange, but David's reassurances were smooth, almost too practiced. "Just routine, Sarah. Want to make sure you're comfortable." He was being deliberately vague. The doctor handed David a sealed envelope, a detailed report. Relief, sharp and undeniable, flickered across David's face as he scanned it. His plan, whatever it was, hinged on this. He just couldn't let Sarah see it yet. Leaving the clinic, Sarah finally broke the silence. "All those tests? For a fake wedding?" David avoided her eyes, his voice carefully neutral. "Want to be sure you're healthy. Can't have anything happen while we're married." A chill touched Sarah. Something in his tone was off, something she couldn't quite place. But the promise of a different life was too strong to ignore. That night, as they moved to the next phase, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this proposal was far more complex than it seemed. The drive to David's estate was a descent into another world. The city's relentless energy dissolved, replaced by hushed streets lined with towering trees and mansions that seemed to belong to another era. Sarah watched the transformation unfold through the car window, silent and watchful. David, beside her, was absorbed in his phone, as if this journey into opulence was just another item on his to-do list. The car glided through imposing iron gates that swung open silently, revealing a sprawling estate. The mansion loomed, a majestic facade of stone and glass, surrounded by manicured gardens that looked too perfect to be real. "Welcome," David said, his tone detached, almost dismissive. Sarah was speechless. From concrete sidewalks to this, it was a leap beyond comprehension. "You live here?" she asked, the question barely a whisper. "We will, for the next 9 months," he corrected, a cold smile touching his lips. Stepping inside was like entering a museum of wealth. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto marble floors, reflecting the opulent furnishings. Everything screamed extravagance, a life lived on a different planet. Sarah stared at David, trying to understand a man who could exist in this reality without seeming to feel its weight. Before she could process the sheer scale of it, a woman with a composed air and sharp eyes approached. "Mr. Sterling, everything is ready as requested." Her gaze flickered towards Sarah, a silent question in her eyes. "Thank you, Eleanor. This is Sarah. She'll be staying for a while. See that she has everything she needs." Eleanor nodded, her curiosity barely veiled. Sarah felt the woman's scrutiny, a subtle reminder that she was an outsider here. David led Sarah through cavernous hallways to a bedroom that dwarfed her entire life. Soft whites and blues painted the walls, and the room seemed to exhale luxury. Your room. Hope it meets your expectations. There was a hint of irony in his voice. Sarah gave a bitter smile. More than enough. Bigger than anywhere I've ever been. David didn't respond, but his expression confirmed he understood the gulf between their worlds. Moments later, he gestured for her to follow. They descended to a room where a team of people waited. Stylists, makeup artists, wardrobe consultants. Sarah recoiled, alarmed. What is this? We need to make you presentable. Can't have anyone questioning our marriage. David's tone was clipped, businesslike. Sarah crossed her arms, feeling like a specimen under a microscope. So, you want me to play the perfect wife? Is that it? A faint smile touched David's lips. Not play, look perfect. There's a difference. Reluctantly, Sarah yielded. Hours blurred as she was draped in designer clothes, her hair sculpted, her face transformed by makeup. When she finally looked in the mirror, the reflection was almost unrecognizable. The woman staring back exuded confidence, elegance, a belonging to this world of privilege. I look like someone else, she murmured, barely a whisper. David, who had watched silently from a corner, finally spoke. He tilted his head slightly, his gaze assessing. You're ready. The words felt hollow, meaningless. Beneath the designer facade, she was still just Sarah, the woman from the street. Yet, a fragile spark of hope flickered. Maybe, just maybe, this bizarre opportunity could truly change her life. Later, Eleanor brought a tray of food to Sarah's room. She lingered, a hesitant expression on her face. Is everything all right? Sarah asked, sensing the woman's unease. Eleanor sighed, choosing her words carefully. Mr. Sterling, he's a complicated man. He doesn't do anything without a very specific reason. Sarah's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means if he brought you here, there's more at play than you know. Be careful, Sarah. Before Sarah could question further, Eleanor slipped out, leaving her with a knot of unease in her stomach. Sleep eluded Sarah that night. Doubt swirled in her mind. Why a fake marriage? What did David really want? And why did she sense something hidden beneath his carefully constructed facade? In his office, David reviewed Sarah's medical reports. Everything was as expected. Healthy, fertile, perfect. The report confirmed she was capable of giving him exactly what he needed, a child. But as he stared at the paper, his thoughts drifted to Sarah's eyes, that mix of defiance and vulnerability. She was unlike anyone he'd ever encountered. Perhaps it was her resilience, her refusal to be intimidated, even in her vulnerable position. David shook his head, dismissing the thought. Distractions were a luxury he couldn't afford. The plan was in motion, and nothing could derail it. The new day at Sterling Manor began with a brisk efficiency. Sarah was awakened by a knock. Eleanor, precise as always, entered with a breakfast tray and a restrained smile. Mr. Sterling requests you be ready in an hour. He has engagements and wishes you to accompany him. The request felt odd, but Sarah knew she wasn't in a position to refuse. She had to play her part, whatever it was. Dressed in clothes chosen by the stylist, Sarah found David in the grand foyer. He was impeccable in a charcoal suit, radiating power and control. He glanced at her, a quick, appraising look, as if checking his investment. Shall we? He said, opening the door to the waiting car. The ride was silent. Sarah tried to initiate conversation, but David seemed lost in thought, his focus laser-sharp on the next step of his plan. He admired Sarah's spirit, but it couldn't interfere. This was a business transaction, nothing more. The car stopped in front of another clinic, smaller and more discreet than the first. Sarah frowned. More tests? I thought we were done. David didn't meet her gaze. His voice was calm, controlled. Just ensuring everything is perfect. No room for complications. Sarah didn't understand his obsession with perfection, but she followed the doctor waiting in the reception area. The doctor, soft-spoken but meticulous, asked precise questions. Sarah felt like an exhibit being evaluated, her body dissected and analyzed. While Sarah was examined, David waited in the lounge. The doctor emerged, an envelope in hand, and gave it to David. Excellent results. She's in peak condition. David nodded, a subtle tension easing from his shoulders. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Yet, a nagging unease remained. Sarah, with her intelligence and resilience, was proving to be more than just a convenient asset. When Sarah emerged, she eyed David with a mix of irritation and curiosity. They asked strange questions. Is that normal? David shrugged, his impassive mask firmly in place. Doctors are thorough. Don't worry about it. Sarah crossed her arms, unconvinced but choosing not to press. Later, Sarah began to explore the mansion. It was a gilded cage, a world of unimaginable luxury that felt strangely hollow. Wandering through the opulent rooms, she passed a study where David was on the phone, his voice sharp and urgent. Every step aligned, no mistakes. Sarah paused, trying to decipher more, but David noticed her and abruptly closed the door. A shiver ran down her spine. What was he planning? That evening at dinner, Sarah tried to broach the subject casually. You always seem so busy. Is it something big you're working on? David offered a practiced smile. My work is demanding, but nothing for you to concern yourself with. He deflected with practiced ease, but Sarah sensed a deeper layer, something he was carefully concealing. After dinner, sleep remained elusive. David's behavior was a puzzle, attentive yet distant, caring yet cold. She decided she needed to find out more. The next morning, while David was in a meeting, Sarah ventured to his office. The door was unlocked. She stepped inside. The room was vast, lined with bookshelves, and dominated by a large wooden desk. Sarah began to search, seeking anything that might shed light on David's motives. She noticed a partially open drawer. Inside, a folder with her name. Hesitation warred with burning curiosity. She opened it. Medical reports, detailed notes. Sarah's blood ran cold. The tests she'd undergone, ordered even before she'd agreed to his proposal. What are you doing? David's voice froze her. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, his expression thunderous. I was looking for answers, she stammered, trying to conceal the folder. David entered, taking the folder from her hands. You deserve answers, but not like this. Sarah faced him, arms crossed. Then tell me the truth. Why the tests? Why me? David sighed, running a hand through his hair. He couldn't reveal everything, but he couldn't push her further away either. I have my reasons, Sarah. And believe me, none of them are meant to hurt you. His words offered little comfort. Sarah left the office, feeling manipulated and more determined than ever to unravel his secrets. David watched her go, the folder heavy in his hand. He was losing control, and for the first time, he questioned if involving Sarah had been a catastrophic mistake. Silence permeated Sterling Manor after their confrontation. Sarah was consumed by the contents of the folder and David's evasive answers. She was trapped, a gilded prisoner in his elaborate game. David, too, was restless. He was losing his grip. Despite his calculated demeanor, Sarah was unsettling him. Her strength, her unwavering gaze were chipping away at his carefully constructed walls. Sarah needed to escape the suffocating opulence, the web of lies. She needed clarity. She asked Eleanor for permission to walk in the gardens, a vast, manicured expanse that felt more like a gilded cage than paradise. She found a bench near a fountain, the water a soothing murmur against the silence. What did she truly know about David? Powerful, enigmatic, a man shrouded in secrets. And what did he know about her? Why was she so important to his plan? David sat in his office, immersed in reports from a private investigator. He'd left nothing to chance. He'd needed to know everything about Sarah before making his offer. But as he read, a different kind of unease settled in. Sarah's story was more than just a file. It was a tragedy. Homelessness was just the latest chapter. Her family, once stable, had been destroyed by financial ruin. Then, a car accident, taking her parents, leaving her orphaned and adrift. A weight settled in David's chest. Numbers, deals, power, that was his world. But Sarah's story was human, raw, heartbreaking. For the first time, he questioned the morality of his carefully laid plan. Was it fair to subject Sarah to this, considering everything she'd already endured? Later, David found Sarah in the library, lost in a book. She looked up, her eyes questioning. You seem thoughtful, she observed, noticing the unusual softness in his expression. David hesitated. I've been thinking about how you ended up on the streets. I want to understand your story, Sarah. Everything. Sarah frowned, suspicion warring with a flicker of something else. No one had ever cared about her past. Sharing her pain felt like reopening old wounds. Why? It doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. She looked away, dismissing him. David stepped closer, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. It matters to me. I want to know who you really are. Sarah took a shaky breath, fighting the urge to retreat. Something in his voice, a sincerity she hadn't detected before, held her captive. Hesitantly, she began to speak. I had a simple life. Happy. Parents worked hard. Not much. but we were okay." Her voice was low, almost hesitant. "Then, they lost everything. Savings wiped out." David remained silent, his gaze fixed on her, absorbing every word. "They tried to rebuild, but then the accident. Truck hit their car. Gone." Sarah's voice trembled. "No, goodbye." Tears welled, blurring her vision. After that, alone, tried jobs, no experience, too young. She paused, fighting for breath. Evicted, no rent. Streets. Tears streamed down her face. Scraps, handouts, invisible. People look right through you. Richard felt a lump in his throat. Seeing Sarah, always so strong, break down affected him deeply. "Sarah," he said, kneeling beside her, meeting her gaze. She tried to wipe away the tears, but he wouldn't let her. He reached out, embracing her, a gesture of comfort, disregarding their usual distance. "I am so sorry," he murmured, his voice thick with sincerity. Sarah stiffened, surprised by the unexpected comfort. Slowly, she relaxed into the embrace, the dam of her emotions finally breaking. "Just wanted a chance," she whispered, still weeping. "You deserve more than just a chance," David replied, his tone firm, surprising even himself. They stayed there, locked in a silent embrace. When Sarah finally pulled away, her expression had shifted. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice weak but laced with gratitude. David nodded. Knowing words weren't enough. He needed to do more, even if it meant unraveling his own carefully constructed plans. The days after their conversation marked a subtle shift in their dynamic. The contract, the facade began to fray, replaced by something more complex, more human. David was present, attentive. Sarah, though still wary, saw glimpses beneath the cold exterior. One morning, Sarah was in the garden, tending to the flowers, a task Eleanor had noted she'd never seen receive such care. It was a small act of normalcy in her surreal life. David watched her from the veranda, lost in thought. Eleanor approached with coffee. "You've been different," she observed, a familiar frankness in her voice. "Different how?" David asked, his gaze fixed on Sarah. "I don't know, more human, perhaps?" A faint smirk touched David's lips. "That sounds like an insult, Eleanor." "No, just... Miss Sarah seems to have unlocked something you've kept buried." David didn't reply. Eleanor's words resonated. He descended to the garden. Sarah stood, wiping her hands on the apron Eleanor had insisted she wear. "Didn't know you liked flowers," David said casually. "Don't know if I do," she shrugged. "Just good to do something useful." He laughed, a genuine sound. "More than I've ever done for this garden." "Eleanor always said it was just for show." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Everything here seems to be for show, including you." David was taken aback by her bluntness, but he wasn't offended. He admired her honesty. "Maybe you're right," he admitted, "but appearances often hide more than they reveal." Sarah smiled, but said nothing. She knew David was trying to open up, but he was still guarded, revealing only what he chose to. That afternoon, David suggested an outing. "We're going out," he announced as Sarah finished lunch. "Out where?" she asked, skeptical. "Trust me, just this once." Reluctantly, she agreed. He drove to a secluded park, a haven of green in the city. Tall trees, winding paths, a world away from Manhattan's relentless energy. Sarah was surprised. This wasn't the ostentatious display she expected. "Why here?" she asked, looking around. "Thought you might need to breathe." They walked in silence to a small lake, the water reflecting the trees like a mirror. A sense of peace settled over Sarah, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. "It's beautiful," she admitted, breaking the silence. David looked at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. "You deserve beautiful things, Sarah." She turned, surprised by his sincerity, but before she could respond, David looked away, visibly uncomfortable. They sat on a bench, and Sarah began to share stories of her childhood, happy memories juxtaposed against the harsh reality that followed. David listened, intently, a level of attention she'd never expected. "And you?" she asked suddenly. "What was your childhood like?" David hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Lonely, parents, busy, everything money could buy, but no company." Bitterness tinged his voice. For the first time, Sarah saw David as someone carrying his own invisible wounds. "Guess we're all just trying to overcome something," she said softly. David nodded, silent agreement. On the drive back, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of connection, For the first time, it felt real, beyond the contract. Arriving at the mansion, David stopped the car, turning to face her. Sarah, I know there's a lot you don't understand about me, but I want you to know you're not alone here. Her heart raced. His words, despite her resistance, resonated deeply. Thank you, she whispered, averting her gaze. That night, Sarah replayed the day in her mind. David's words, his unexpected vulnerability, were unsettling. In his office, David wrestled with his own actions. He was becoming too involved. Feelings were clouding his judgment, something he'd never allowed. Sarah was awakening something he thought long dormant. The carefully constructed walls were crumbling. The tension between Sarah and David thickened. The folder, the evasions, eroded any trust Sarah might have been building. She felt trapped, suffocated by secrets. She needed a way out, a way to reclaim her life. One morning, Sarah walked the gardens, desperate for clarity. I have to find a way out, she murmured, her eyes fixed on the imposing gates. Later, while David was in a meeting, Sarah began to plan. She observed the staff's routines, noting the gates opening for deliveries. Risky, but staying was unbearable. That night, she packed a small bag, clothes, a book Eleanor had lent her, a framed photo of her parents David had given her, a gesture that now felt both kind and manipulative. At dawn, dressed simply, Sarah waited. The gate creaked open for a delivery. She moved, staying hidden. But before she could reach the threshold, a firm hand gripped her arm. Where do you think you're going? David's voice, low, steady, sharp. Sarah turned, heart pounding. He stood there, somber, hurt in his eyes. Let me go, David, she said, trying to pull free. I can't stay here. Why not? His grip tightened, not painfully but firmly. Because you don't trust me. Because you're hiding something. Yes, Sarah burst out. You know everything about me, but you won't tell me the truth. This place, beautiful but a prison. I don't know what you want from me, and it's killing me. David sighed, releasing her arm, but blocking her path. You can't just leave. It's not safe. Safe for who? Sarah retorted, arms crossed. For me, or for your plan? He hesitated. Her suspicion was confirmed. That's what I thought, she said, frustration heavy in her voice. David ran a hand through his hair, agitated. Sarah, I know this feels wrong. Maybe I've handled this terribly, but I can't let you go. Not now. Why? She pleaded, desperation in her voice. What do you really want from me, David? He looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. I don't know how to answer that, he admitted, lowering his head. His vulnerability disarmed her briefly. She'd expected anger, control, not this confused honesty. Still, she wouldn't surrender her freedom. Not enough, David. I need answers. Honesty, or I'm leaving. David stepped back, breathing deeply. If you truly want to leave, I won't stop you. But I care about you, Sarah, more than I should. The confession startled her. She stood silent, processing his words. And if I stay? She asked hesitantly. Will you stop treating me like a contract? David nodded slowly. I'll try. Sarah hesitated. The open gate, a symbol of freedom, beckoned. But something held her back. Curiosity about David, about the secrets he guarded, and the vulnerability he'd just revealed. All right, she said finally. I'll stay, for now. David looked relieved, but his expression remained complex. Later, in her room, Sarah replayed the encounter. Leaving was still an option, but something shifted. David intrigued her. She needed to understand him before making a final decision. In his office, David watched the gates, knowing he was fortunate Sarah had stayed. But he also knew he had to change. Secrets would only push her away further. Sarah's unease persisted. Despite David's attempts at kindness, the sense of hidden motives remained. Doubts gnawed at her, making trust impossible. She needed answers. One afternoon, Sarah found herself outside David's bedroom. Closed, but not locked. He was at a meeting. Opportunity. Hesitantly, she entered. Elegant, orderly, reflecting David's controlled nature. A black folder on a cabinet caught her eye. Out of place, almost carelessly left. Sarah's heart pounded. Curiosity won. She picked up the folder, opened it. Medical reports. Familiar tests, but as she read further, her stomach twisted. Reproductive health. Ideal conditions for gestation confirmed. Sarah gasped, shock and betrayal flooding her. It all clicked. The tests, the questions, his obsession with her health. She wasn't a wife. She was an incubator. Tears blurred her vision. She flipped through more pages, details that reduced her to an object. Lost in the documents, she didn't hear footsteps until the door opened. David froze. Sarah, the folder in her hands. Shock flickered across his face, then steel. "Sarah, what are you doing?" His voice, low, tense. Sarah faced him, tears streaming. "Learning the truth, David. You never wanted a wife. You wanted a womb." Papers scattered on the bed. David closed the door, sighed. "Sarah, it's not that simple." "Not simple?" Sarah shouted, indignation shaking her voice. "Explain. Explain how you thought this was acceptable, treating me like an object." David stepped forward, but she recoiled. He raised his hands, placating. "I needed an heir, Sarah. Secure my family, my business. Couldn't risk it. You seemed right." "Right?" Sarah laughed, a bitter sound. "You don't even know me. You knew I was desperate. Used it." "I didn't want it this way," David said, regret in his voice. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" Sarah's voice cracked. "You have no idea what complicated is. Losing everything, being treated like nothing." David opened his mouth, then closed it. She was right. His privilege was a world away from her reality. "Tell me the truth, David," she pleaded, voice low, emotional. "Why me?" He met her gaze, pain and anger mirrored in her eyes. He wanted to tell her everything, but the plan— "I chose you because I thought we could help each other," he finally said. "I needed someone who understood starting over. You needed a chance." Sarah was silent, processing his words. Almost sincere, but she sensed more, always more. "Not enough, David. I need honesty. Or maybe I should leave." Tightness in his chest. Their marriage, temporary, yet the thought of her leaving now, wrong. "I don't want you to go," he said, softer. I need you here." Sarah didn't reply. She handed him the folder and left. David watched her go, the folder heavy in his hands. He was losing her. He needed to change course, but was it too late? Sarah packed, mind reeling. Betrayal, hurt. A part of her still connected to David, but forgiveness felt impossible. Before bed, hand on her abdomen. Pregnant? Possibility. Reality she couldn't ignore. Alone. Dawn. Sarah was gone. Richard woke, expecting her in the garden. Absence palpable. Eleanor approached, worried. "Miss Sarah?" Gone. Breakfast untouched. Richard silent, absorbing. Expected, yet still a blow. "Thank you, Eleanor." Alone, Richard sank onto the sofa, head in hands. The folder lay on the table, stark reminder. Later, office. Documents meaningless. Julia's face, pain, anger, phone, driver. "Where's Sarah?" "Didn't request car. Left on foot. Small bag." Unsettling. Sarah, alone, no resources. Intolerable. Richard hung up, lost. Wealth, power, connections, useless now. Streets of New York. Sarah walked head high. Betrayed, hurt, determined, each step heavy, couldn't go back. Mansion, David's control. Unthinkable. Motel, simple, rundown but affordable. Bed, bag, days passed. Pregnant? Symptoms, nausea, fatigue, tests needed. Richard spent day numb. Silence in mansion deafening. Every corner Sarah, Carmen to office. Find Sarah. Envelope, money, instructions. Find her. Safe. Carmen nodded, surprised. More than duty. Genuine care. "If she doesn't want to be found?" Carmen asked. "Don't push, just— she has what she needs." Carmen left. Richard stared at phone. Needed to speak to Sarah. Words insufficient. Sarah, planning, motel temporary, streets, no. Fresh start, far from David, bag packed, envelope by door, money, no sender. Richard, mix of anger, gratitude, bag, motel room, move forward, past, inescapable, days to weeks. Sarah's absence weighed on Richard, night staring at folder. Each page, bad choices, questioning himself, his life. Control, manipulation, belief. Control equals security. Sarah, change that. Vulnerability, mourning, financial reports, frustration, wealth, emptiness. Abruptly stood. Enough. Change. Cut ties, unethical partners, profitable but wrong. Cancelled contracts, questionable practices. Invested social impact projects. Team puzzled. Richard didn't care. First time, action beyond strategy, rebuilding values, Sarah always in mind. Transformation incomplete without repairing their damage. How to approach her, Julia rebuilding. Money from David, small apartment, fresh start, job hunting, emotional scars raw. Thoughts of Richard, remorse, realization, hard to trust again. Afternoon, organizing things, dizziness. Fatigue intensified, suspicion grew. Pharmacy, pregnancy test, bed, waited, holding breath, confirmation, pregnant, Richard's child, everything changed, uncertainty. Richard, reconnecting, knew where she was, respected distance. Carmen's update, Sarah's emotional state, couldn't wait longer. Need to talk to her, he said. Change approach, honesty, risk, days later. Knock on Sarah's door. Richard, flowers, different, less cold. Richard? Surprised, cautious. Needed to see you. Sincerity. Not best time, but can't go on without fixing things. Sarah crossed arms, distant. Fix things. David hurt me deeply. Flowers, insufficient. Nodded. No, not asking forgiveness now. Truth, all of it. Sarah considered, listened, stepped aside. Living room. Richard spoke. Proposal, selfish. Control, plans, you, part of plan. Regret that deeply. But time with you, wrong. Not because plan failed, but you showed me something I needed. Real connection. Life. Not just business, strategies. Sarah silent, his words sinking in. Still hard to trust. But tone, genuine. What do you expect? Sarah, softer, cautious. Nothing, honestly. Just you to know, changing, better person, for you, future. Sarah furrowed brow. Hidden meaning? Future? Knew something? Future? Calm? Richard met her gaze, reading her thoughts. Might be too soon, but hope one day, trust me again, however long. Sarah's tears flowed, composure dissolving. I need time, David. Figure this out, for me. Nodded, stood. Understand, just, I'll be here, when you're ready. Bouquet on table, last look. Thank you, Sarah. Door closed. Sarah sat, flowers, replaying everything. Something told her Richard was truthful. Hard to forget betrayal, used feeling. Pregnancy confirmed. More complicated now. Sarah on couch, bouquet on table. Flowers beautiful. Chaos emotions. Hand on abdomen. Responsibility. Not just her, baby too. Needed medical care. Clinic simple, welcoming. Doctor kind, reassuring. Excellent health. Baby developing well. Ultrasound images, tiny flicker, tears, real, new life. Joy, fear, uncertainty, Richard struggling, emptiness, folder reminder. Questioning himself, who he was, what he truly wanted. Life built on control, manipulation. Julia changed that. Vulnerability, frustration, stood abruptly, couldn't continue, change needed, drastic changes, cut ties, unethical partners, social impact projects, puzzled team, Richard, different now. Rebuilding values, Julia always in mind, transformation incomplete without repair, how to approach her without force. Julia, planning next step, motel temporary, fresh start, far away, bag packing, envelope by door, money, Richard, mix anger, gratitude, bag, motel room, move forward, past, inescapable. Days turned weeks. Sarah's absence weighed on Richard, nights staring at folder, each page reminder of his choices, questioning not just actions but who he was, what he truly wanted. Deep down, Richard knew life built on control, manipulation, grew up believing only way to secure future, leave nothing to chance. Julia changed that, brought vulnerability. Morning, reviewing financial reports, frustration washed over him. Surrounded by wealth, emptier than ever, abruptly stood, decided couldn't continue like this. Something needed to change. Richard began making drastic adjustments to his life. Severed ties with business partners whose ethics he despised. Cancelled contracts reliant on questionable practices, invested in social impact projects. Decisions puzzled team, Richard didn't care. First time, wanted to do something not purely strategic. As worked to rebuild values, couldn't stop thinking about Julia. Knew no transformation complete without repairing what happened between them. Yet, still didn't know how to approach her without seeming like he was forcing anything. Julia, on other hand, trying to rebuild life. Money Richard left, rented small apartment. Simple but fresh start. Days looking for work, still processing emotional impact. Despite everything, couldn't completely shake thoughts of Richard. Wondered if remorseful, if realized how much actions hurt her. But trusting him again, difficult. One afternoon, organizing things, Julia felt sudden dizziness. Exhaustion of past few days, more intense, suspicions grew stronger. Heavy heart, decided to walk to nearby pharmacy, buy pregnancy test. Bed, waited for result, holding breath. Confirmation appeared. Julia didn't know how to feel, mixed joy and fear. Pregnant, Richard's child. Knew this changed everything, but wasn't ready to decide what to do. Richard, meanwhile, searching way to reconnect with Julia. Knew where she was, respected decision to stay away. However, receiving update from Carmen about Julia's emotional state, felt he couldn't wait any longer. I need to talk to her, he said to himself, organizing thoughts. Knew just apologizing wouldn't be enough. Needed to show her changed, ready to let go control, approach things differently. Few days later, Julia surprised by knock at apartment door. Richard standing there, flowers. Different, less cold, less calculated. Richard? Surprised but cautious. What are you doing here? Needed to see you, he replied, sincerity evident in voice. No might not be best time, but can't go on without trying to fix things. Julia crossed arms, maintaining emotional distance. Fix things? Richard, you don't understand how much you hurt me. This isn't something flowers can fix. He nodded, acknowledging truth in words. I know, and I'm not here to ask for forgiveness right away. I'm here because I need to tell you the truth. All of it. Julia looked at him, trying to decide if ready to listen. Finally, stepped aside, let him in. Small living room, Richard began to speak. When I made proposal, only thinking about myself. My world always control, ensuring nothing slips out of plans. You became part of that plan, and I deeply regret treating you that way. Paused, deep breath. But as I spent time with you, I realized wrong. Not because plan failed, but because you showed me something I didn't know I needed. Real connection. You made me see life isn't just about business and strategies. Julia listened silently, his words sinking in. Still hard to trust him, but something in tone felt genuine. And what do you expect me to do with this, Richard? She asked, voice softer but cautious. Nothing, he replied honestly. Just wanted you to know that I'm changing, that I want to be a better person, not just for me, but for you, and for whatever future holds. Julia furrowed brow, sensing hidden meaning. Future? She asked, trying to keep calm. Richard looked directly at her, as if reading thoughts. I know might be too soon, but I hope that one day you can trust me again, no matter how long. Julia felt tears streaming down face, but maintained composure. I need time, Richard. I need to figure out what all this means for me. He nodded, standing up. I understand. Just wanted you to know that I'll be here when you're ready. Before leaving, placed bouquet on table, looked at her last time. Thank you for listening, Sarah. She remained silent, watching him leave. Door closed, Julia sat down, looked at flowers. Processing everything. Something inside told her Richard being truthful. Hard to forget what he had done. Couldn't erase betrayal, feeling used. Now, pregnancy confirmed. Things even more complicated. Julia sat on couch, bouquet still on table. Flowers beautiful, but couldn't mask chaos of emotions. Hand on abdomen. Felt weight of responsibility ahead. Think not just herself, baby too. Next day, Julia decided needed medical care. Confirm pregnancy, ensure everything okay. Small clinic, simple, welcoming. Doctor kind, explained procedure, reassured her. You're in excellent health. Baby seems to be developing well, doctor said. Ultrasound images. Julia's eyes filled with tears. Tiny flicker on screen. Made everything real. New life growing inside her. Joy and fear mixed, leaving her even more uncertain about future. Richard struggling to maintain composure amidst chaos thoughts. Done best to show Julia changing, knew wasn't enough. Needed give her space, uncertainty eating away at him. Determined to do something meaningful, began finding ways to ensure Julia and baby had everything needed, regardless her response. Discreetly hired lawyer, set up account in her name, depositing enough money to cover expenses next several years. Researched how to offer emotional, physical support without pressuring her. Deep down, Richard knew none of this could replace what truly mattered: desire to be by her side, part of baby's life. Few days later, Julia home, unexpected visit. Carmen at door, envelope, concerned expression. Richard asked me to deliver this to you, Carmen said, handing envelope. Julia hesitated, then accepted. Opened it, legal documents detailing account in her name. Letter from Richard. Julia, I want you to know that no matter what you decide, I'll be here to support you and baby. This account created to ensure you have everything you need, not about control, but attempt to repair, at least in part, harm I've caused. Hope this shows my intentions now different. Sincerely, Richard. Julia felt lump in throat, finished reading, didn't know what to think. On one hand, felt like another attempt by Richard exert control. On other hand, couldn't deny seemed like genuine gesture of concern. He really trying, isn't he? Julia asked Carmen, voice uncertain. Mr. Sterling has changed a lot since you left, Carmen replied, faint smile. He's never been this vulnerable before, but I believe he's learning. Julia, silent, reflecting housekeeper's words. That night, Julia couldn't sleep, tossed and turned, thinking what to do. Finally decided needed talk to Richard. Didn't know what say, but knew couldn't keep putting it off. Next morning, called him. Richard answered almost immediately, voice surprised, relieved. Julia, is everything okay? Can we meet? I need to talk to you. Of course. Whenever, wherever you want, he replied. No hesitation. Agreed to meet small cafe city center. Neutral place, feel more at ease. Arrived, Richard already seated, waiting, anxious expression. Thank you for meeting me, he said, standing as she sat. I'm not here to start over, Richard, she began, tone firm. I'm here because we need to talk about baby. He silent, absorbing words. Suspected this might be case, hearing confirmation shook him. You're pregnant? He asked, voice heavy with emotion. Julia nodded. Yes, and this changes everything. Richard leaned forward, eyes fixed on hers. Julia, no matter what happened before, I want to be there. I want to be part of this baby's life, and yours if you'll allow it. She looked at him, sincerity in his words, but doubt still lingered. I don't know if I can trust you, Richard. You broke that trust, not easily rebuilt. I understand, he said quietly, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust again. And more than that, I'm committed to being the father this baby deserves. Julia didn't respond immediately. Something different about Richard, couldn't ignore, but also knew needed protect herself, baby. Let's take things slow, she said finally. I can't promise anything, but I'm willing to give you a chance to prove you really changed. Relief on Richard's face evident, but didn't show excessive enthusiasm. Knew needed be patient, consistent. Thank you, Julia. I promise I won't disappoint you. Said goodbyes, Julia felt glimmer of hope growing in heart. Didn't know future held, but willing to take it one step at a time. Days following cafe meeting, cautious steps, small gestures, connection. Julia and Richard united by something bigger than differences, new life growing inside her. Still mistrust, Julia could see Richard keeping promise to try. Richard began accompanying Julia medical appointments, staying respectfully background. Punctual, attentive detail, ready step in if needed. During appointments, doctor explained baby's progress. Richard watched Julia, expression combined fascination and regret. Are you okay? Julia asked, noticing gaze. Richard shook head slightly, snapping out of trance. I am. It's just incredible. Knowing something so special happening, somehow I'm part of it. Julia looked away, unsure how to respond. Part of her wanted to believe Richard, fear being hurt again, still heavy in heart. After appointments, Richard suggested lunch, quiet restaurant. Julia hesitated, but agreed. Time to talk about what they both expected from future. Julia, I want you to know I'm not here just because of baby, he said, waiting for food. I'm here because I genuinely want to be part of your life. Not contract, obligation, but because you mean something to me. Julia took deep breath, processing words. Still hard for her accept Richard could change so drastically. It's hard to trust that, Richard. You manipulated me, took advantage worst moment my life, put me position I didn't choose. Now, even with everything you're doing, still feels insufficient. Richard nodded, acknowledging pain his actions caused. I know I made terrible choices, Julia, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show you I'm a different person now. Julia looked at him, vulnerability in voice. First time she'd seen Richard so open, willing to admit mistakes. Moved her, even if didn't want to admit it. Months passed. Julia's belly grew, complexity feelings toward Richard. Present every moment, helping prepare small apartment baby's arrival. Never crossed boundaries she set, but also didn't hide desire be closer. One evening, organizing baby clothes, Julia decided to break silence. "Why are you so determined to fix everything, Richard?" she asked softly. He stopped, looked at her. "Because for first time in my life, I realize what I truly want can't be bought, planned. You and this baby are only things that matter to me now." Julia felt tear escape, quickly wiped it away. "And what if I can't trust you again? What if it's never enough?" Richard's small, sad smile. "Then I'll keep trying, Julia. I'll keep trying, even if it takes lifetime." Moment. Most united Julia and Richard, quiet evening. Julia home, sharp pain. Normal, then pain intensified, knew something wrong. Richard arrived minutes later. Carmen called him, noticed something off. Found Julia couch, trying hide concern. "Are you okay?" he asked, kneeling beside her. "I think we need to go to hospital," Julia said, voice trembling. Richard didn't waste time, grabbed keys, helped Julia car, drive, held her hand, calm. Hospital, doctors confirmed premature labor. Richard's heart raced, but stayed strong by her side. Hours later, baby's cry delivery room. Julia held tiny girl, tears streaming. Richard beside her, eyes fixed on scene. "She's perfect," he said, voice thick with emotion. Julia looked at him, something in Richard's eyes never seen before. Genuine purity, joy. "Yes, she is," Julia replied, small smile. Days followed. Julia, Richard, hospital, baby. Closeness shared during time, new dynamic to relationship. Julia still reservations, but began see Richard new light. One evening, Julia cradled sleeping baby. Richard approached, calm expression. "Have you thought of a name?" he asked. Julia smiled, looking down at daughter. "I was thinking Lily. What do you think?" Richard nodded, smile widening. "It's perfect." Silence, watching little Lily. Simple moment, so much meaning. Brought Lily home. Julia knew long road ahead. She, Richard, not fully reconciled, but important step right direction. More than that, now family, changed everything. Richard continued demonstrate commitment, not just Lily, Julia too. Knew still much prove, but willing to wait as long as took. Julia, little by little, began open heart possibility new beginning. Not just Lily, because despite everything, something in Richard she believed she could trust again. Months following Lily's birth, challenges, discoveries for Julia, Richard, now shared bond beyond contracts, expectations. Each moment Lily brought them closer, every smile daughter added light their lives. Julia still doubts, but Richard dedicated, proving committed being different man, better partner, above all, present father. One sunny afternoon, Lily napped crib. Richard found Julia Garden's small apartment. Bench, watching flowers bloom, thinking. "Thinking about something?" he asked, approaching gentle smile. Julia looked at him, eyes reflecting doubt, affection. "Thinking about how unpredictable life is. Few months ago, never imagined I'd be here, with daughter with you." Richard sat beside her, small distance, respecting space still needed. "And you?" Julia asked, moment silence. "What were you expecting when all this started?" Richard sighed, looking flowers. "At first, I thought I was control, plan everything, always have, but you showed me life doesn't work that way. To be honest, don't know if I've ever thanked you for that." Julia, faint smile, surprised honesty. "Thanked me? For what?" "For showing me what really matters can't be manipulated. Love, trust, earned, not demanded." Richard's words struck chord in Julia. Knew he had changed, slowly began realize might be time let go past. Months passed. Richard continued dedicate himself Julia, Lily. There for every milestone, Lily's first smile, early attempts crawling. Julia, turn, began allowing him get closer. Still scars, but time. Richard's actions, helping heal them. One evening, Lily sleeping soundly, Richard invited Julia dinner. Small restaurant he discovered. Intimate, cozy, perfect quiet conversation. "This place is beautiful," Julia said, admiring candles lighting room. "I thought it suited you," Richard replied, smiling. Dinner, reminisced tumultuous early days relationship, laughing situations once seemed insurmountable. Point, vulnerability, Richard reached for Julia's hand. I know I've made so many mistakes, Julia, and I know I may never fully make up for what I did, but I want you to know that I love you, not because of Lily or any plan. I love you for who you are, and I want to spend rest of my life showing you that. Julia's silent moments, his words echoing heart, knew he was sincere. For first time, felt she could completely trust Richard. I love you too, she replied, gentle smile. Richard seemed unable to contain emotion. Reached into pocket, small velvet box, opened it, simple yet elegant ring. Julia, I know this is fast, but I want you to know I'm ready for new beginning. Will you marry me again? This time, no contracts, hidden agendas, just us, building life together. Julia felt tears streaming down face, but this time tears joy. Yes, Richard, I want to marry you. Ceremony simple, few guests. Lily, little flower girl, star of event, smiles everyone. Richard, Julia exchanged heartfelt vows. No secrets, only promised love, partnership. Richard looked into Julia's eyes, holding her hands. I promise to love you, respect you, be man you deserve every day my life. Julia smiled, holding back tears. And I promise to trust you, support you, walk by your side, no matter what lies ahead. Said, I do. Applause drowned out overwhelming emotion. Julia, Richard, sealed moment kiss, gesture full hope, love. After ceremony, Richard surprised Julia. Completely renovated mansion, warm, inviting home, full life. Garden now blooming flowers Julia chosen, heart of place. Welcome to our home, Richard said, holding her hand, walked through entrance together. Julia looked around, mixed gratitude, happiness. New wasn't just house, symbol everything they had overcome. Days followed, filled joy. Lily grew up, surrounded love. Julia, Richard found perfect rhythm family. Still faced challenges, now tackled them together. Trust, love. One afternoon playing Lily Garden, Richard looked at Julia, took her hand. I never thought I could be this happy, he said. Julia smiled, leaning head on his shoulder. And I never thought I could trust you again. But you proved you were willing to change, and I'm grateful for that every day. Richard kissed her softly. Lily giggled, trying reach flowers around her. What started as relationship marked manipulation, mistrust, transformed something pure, genuine. Richard, Julia, united by Lily, found happy ending both deserved.